Hello and welcome to this segment of Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Felicia Taylor, and joining me in studio is John Brown and Tony Garrett. And of course, John is with the One Place Family Justice Center, and of course, everybody knows Mr. Garrett. He is with Central Alabama Crime Stoppers. I'd like to welcome both of you to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And today, of course, we're going to talk about a very serious subject. We're going to talk about domestic violence. We're going to talk about some training when it comes to domestic violence. And we're also, Mr. Brown, going to talk about the mission of One Place Family Justice Center and its effects in the church community mainly. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and either one of you can take this. We want to talk about this pastoral training.
Training is meant for anyone that's involved in their church or anyone that's in the ministry position. But we don't care if you're a member in the choir, usher, or just show up in the parking lot. If you want to learn about domestic violence, we want you to show up. Our goal is to teach what domestic violence is. That way you'll be better to cope or even assist if you come across a person that may be dealing with domestic violence.
So why start with the church community?
Well, basically because you never know the person that you're sitting beside may be going through. And it could be a child, it could be a female, it could be a male, it could be one of your senior deacons that may be going through. You never know. So you have to be aware of what is domestic violence so you can at least start looking at some signs that you may be able to catch up on.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes people will look at it as like the secret plight. You know, we don't want to discuss it. We don't want to get involved. But how important is it to get involved and have open dialogue, Mr. Brown?
It is very important to get involved and have open dialogue about it because there is a stigma that goes along with domestic violence and being a victim of domestic violence, and especially in the church. If you're a victim of domestic violence, you know, and you would want to, sometimes they want to sit back and not say anything because they're embarrassed, and you know the abuser may be a church leader, may be a deacon in the church, and the wife is being abused, so she feels that she can't come forward and say anything. So a lot of times they sit there and don't say anything, and if they do come forward, that's one of the good things about the training that we're going to have, is that a lot of times, you know, pastors, you know, when they're confronted with this domestic violence, sometimes they want to do counseling first. Well, the situation may be so serious that they need to do counseling, but they also need to reach out and get some other resources that are available for those victims of domestic violence. And those are some of the things that we'll be talking about at this training, giving those pastors some of the things that they need and some of the things that that will help them make a better decision to get their parishioners to safety.
And that's good, because one of my follow-ups was going to be, how are the pastors, leaders, how do they perceive this information that you're going to be giving out? Or even as a believer, amongst believers, you know, what are you expecting from them?
That's one thing that we're not doing. We're not pushing some type of agenda on the minister itself. All we're doing is stating what a fact is as far as what is domestic violence. And then we're providing resources there that they can pick up a brochure, they can get a telephone number, or they can meet the person that's over the program or over the group that does domestic violence counseling or domestic violence law enforcement. It can be a number of things. We don't want to push any agenda. We just want you to have that tool to use in case you do come across domestic violence and it may be above your head, so to speak.
And it's great to have such a partnership because, again, even as pastors, as leaders, there are counselors, especially when it comes to things from a spiritual standpoint, but sometimes there can be some things so personal that we need a little bit more help, a little bit more education.
Especially, you know, with your parishioners, sometimes they don't want to go to the pastor with that because it may be just too embarrassing, and you've put on this facade for so long in the church, and not that you don't trust that your pastor won't say anything about it, it's just you don't want your pastor to know that deep of a secret about the abuser or about you being a victim, because you may feel like they're going to maybe not point fingers, but maybe characterize you in a way when pastors won't do that, but you're so afraid when you're victims and you're being victimized that you just don't know who to turn to and who will say anything to the abuser.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Mr.
I
Garrett.
was just about to say, a lot of people have the false belief that domestic violence only goes toward physical violence. Domestic violence is a thing of control. The offender is trying to gain control over the person. So he may use, or she may use financial, may use the kids, maybe using just verbal threats for the person. So visibly, it could be you or I, and no one would know that we're going through domestic violence. And that's why this training is so important. So people can learn the other things that deal with domestic violence, or the other components of domestic violence, so they'll be able to see what someone may be going through.
And see, that's great because there are many arms to domestic violence, and people think to look with the natural eye and see some of the physical things, but emotionally, psychologically, the things that an individual is going through. And it's not always necessarily a certain age, it's not always a certain gender, so hopefully this training will address those issues as well.
Exactly, it will. Now, whatever question that's asked, we want you to ask the hard questions, because we want to have someone there that's able to address it or even research it if it's something that's asked that we can't answer. We want those things to be there. We want you to ask the hard questions. We want you to bring those what-if scenarios. We want you to bring those testimonies also, because in our target last year, and some of the things that we were amazed about was that we got a lot of testimony from pastors and ministers on the things that they did wrong. And that was a real eye-opener to us, and we felt that we needed more training for this particular domestic violence.
Tell us a little bit more about One Place Family Justice Center. I know it's been around for a few years now, but it's still somewhat new, and I feel that someone listening may not know exactly what all it offers.
Well, the name really says it all, One Place. Before 2010, victims of domestic violence would have to come and go to the police department to get a warrant, or if they needed counseling, they would have to go to the Family Sunshine Center to get counseling or shelter. So they were having to go different places throughout Montgomery to get services. In 2010, our then District Attorney Ellen Brooks and Karen Sellers with the Family Sunshine Center, they, along with Steve Searcy, they came up with a plan to put all of this, and it was not anything new. They had done it, I think, out in California, where you put all those services up under one roof. So when that victim comes into the Family Justice Center, everything that they need, they can get there. So if they need to seek someone about counseling or shelter or anything like that, work out a safety plan, they can get there with the Family Sunshine Center. If there's a crime has been committed, they can go upstairs and speak with a police officer who would then take them downstairs to see a magistrate to get a warrant. And if they need a protection order, they could go and speak with an attorney. We have an attorney on duty 5 days a week, and the attorney could get them a protection order, file a divorce. So everything is just right there in that one place, and it's very conducive for victims of domestic violence or sexual assault, stalkings, and things like that, because right there in that one place, you're getting what you need.
And that is great, a one-stop shop, but it's so important for them to be able to get everything with everything that is going on,
right,
even within their mind.
Right.
And this one's going to be for you, Mr. Garrett. When does domestic violence become a crime? What's the misconception that we have, not just as a church community, but as a community as a whole, when it comes to what our rights are?
Well, anytime a person starts controlling you through their verbal actions, making demands on you that keeps you away from family members, that keeps you away from the finances, things of that sort, that's a first sign that domestic violence may be taking place. And majority of the time, domestic violence grows into physical and more lethality type tendencies take place. So we want to start it at the beginning. We want to make everyone aware what is domestic violence. So if you're dating and you start seeing the signs of your significant other, the person that you're dating, you can start leaning away from that person before it does get to that point of violence.
With the church community being the beacon of light, in all their various neighborhoods or communities, this really is a good place to start. Because again, earlier we talked about it does not discriminate. And it is on the rise when it comes to domestic violence, especially with our teens.
Exactly. We have 300 churches, over 300 churches in just the Montgomery metro area. Why not start at the church? You're supposed to be the beacon of light. We want the church to be the beacon of light, especially when it comes from the small adult to the older adult. We want the church to have that information so they can put it out to their congregation.
And Mr. Brown, for you, what is the walk away for you? I understand all of this being done, not just through the One Place Justice Center, but with Crime Stoppers, with the churches, all of this partnership and collaboration. What's the walk away for you?
Well, the walk away would be for the ministers to come away equipped with knowledge of how to handle domestic violence, because we're going to have ministers there that have had that to happen, and what they'll do, they'll explain what they did and how they helped their parishioners in those types of situations. So what we want, if it's one thing we want them to leave with, is with resources to know that the One Place Family Justice Center is there. Tony is also the chairman of our Domestic Violence Task Force, what that is a group of community service providers that meet once a month at the Family Justice Center, and we talk about things that's going on within our agencies. And what you have is you have community service providers there that can say, if I had a problem with a client and a client need a particular service, then there are so many people that are sitting around that table that can say, well, we do that. We can offer that service, and then we can put that victim or that client in contact with that particular agency. So we want to let them know that there's resources out there and to use us.
Very good. Gentlemen, there we have it. The needs are being met, and we appreciate the efforts and the work that goes on in the community. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And you all stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more of Joy in Our Town.